Donald Trump just did something he hasn't done before. He apologized. Are we going to start to see a kinder and gentler Donald, and is that what the voters really want? And then Trump releases his first attack ads against Hillary Clinton, at least in the general election. Our political panel will discuss whether they're effective. And the Trump campaign is going after Hillary's health, even diagnosing her with a brain disease. Should armchair diagnoses like these be off limits, or is it just a no-brainer to make it an issue? Good evening and welcome to RFL. I'm Andrew Whitman, in tonight for Richard French. We are just 80 days until Election Day, and on this day, Hillary Clinton still leads Donald Trump. Clinton is holding a 6-point lead, according to the Real Clear Politics polling average. That has not changed much since the conventions. As Trump continues to trail, his campaign is making more changes at the top, and even Trump himself might be changing.
Donald Trump's campaign chairman, Paul Manafort, is out of a job. Manafort resigned under intense scrutiny for alleged illicit payments he may have received while representing a pro-Russian Ukrainian leader. Manafort denies any wrongdoing. The GOP nominee shook up his campaign management this week, and we're already seeing the results.
Sometimes, in the heat of debate, you don't choose the right words, or you say the wrong thing. I have done that, and believe it or not, I regret it.
The brash-talking, tell-it-like-it-is polarizing Republican appears to be changing his tone, though he never issued a specific apology. Today, Trump is in Louisiana to tour the flood-damaged state. The candidate is pivoting to strike a more presidential look, and this may be the person behind it. Newly minted campaign manager KELLYANNE Conway was on GMA.
I hope that everybody who's criticized him at some point, David, for being insensitive or for mocking someone, at least show some recognition and some forgiveness.
The Hillary Clinton camp launched some harsh skepticism, calling it all an act and saying Donald Trump literally started his campaign by insulting people.
In Hillary Clinton's America,
the ad wars are just getting started, with Trump putting out his first at the general election. A $4.8 million ad buy will run in 4 battleground states.
Lots to dissect in the presidential race. Let's get to our panel. Dominic Carter is here, political journalist and author, and we're joined tonight by Scott Levinson, who is the president of the Advance Group. And gentlemen, we spend a lot of time focused on politics. We are sort of in this bubble. And it dawned on me as these changes were happening, I was trying to put myself in the position of a lesser information voter, or somebody who doesn't pay as close attention to this sort of thing. Let's start with Manafort. I understand the need to change campaign staff, shake things up a little bit, and it's understandable once you bring in new people that Manafort's going to leave. But I thought this was Donald Trump, who knew how to pick the right people, was such a shrewd businessman, always knew how to sort of keep this thing going. He can't seem to run a campaign. He didn't seem to be able to run a convention. Does this undermine at all, do you think, people's notion of who Trump is or whether he's ready to be president?
Quite the contrary. I think it reinforces everything that Donald Trump has always been. People are disposable to Donald Trump. If you know anything about him, it's you're fired. You know, people are just commodities. They're just one other thing to get him to his own end goal. That is what businessmen do. Not to offend any or cast aspersions on businessmen, but their goal is profit, and it's not the same goal as running a country, which one would like to think has more to do with basic humanity and caring for people's needs. It's not the same thing, but in Donald Trump's world, people are purely disposable items, and words are said to get to an end, not because they convey any true emotion or true feeling. It's just another line in his way to get to his end game. I
understand that, but Dominic, he's always had the knack, and the know-how has been sort of the underlying premise of his candidacy. Look, I can handle anything. Just look at my business record, however questionable that may be. Do you think this raises any questions for people?
Scott is 1,000% correct. Look at what happened with Roger Stone. Every couple of months, they have a feud. They each go their separate ways. Remember about 6 months ago, all of the media headlines, Roger Stone leaves, I quit. No, Trump fired, Trump, I fired him. And now they're back in bed together like nothing ever happened. Where he's correct is for Trump to understand the method of the madness is just the ways to a mean. And he likes playing these games because the media jumps through all the hoops. And really, at the end of the day, all of this is inside baseball. If it works, and God save us all, if he's elected, then you know, It is what it
But
is.
it's also, he is a function, a man of his times. We live in this lost culture, this function of everybody trying to be the last person on the island, and you'll coalesce with anybody, you'll say anything, you'll do any maneuver just so you could be the last. And I think to some extent that's the framing for Donald Trump in the way he's running this candidacy for the presidency. He's appealing to a certain niche. It's certainly not the best of what America can be, but he thinks it's a sellable message to enough of a population to get him to the finish line.
But if you asked me,
You don't get much more cynical than that.
No, but if you asked me before we reached the general election stage, who would be the I'll say anything, I'll do anything to get elected candidate, that would have been Hillary Clinton. That's sort of the strike on her that, and the Clintons themselves, they'll morph into whatever they need to morph into in order to get elected. Now all of a sudden Donald Trump's doing it.
Which is to some extent why you have to fear his candidacy. Because there are so many people who have issues with Hillary's quote unquote authenticity, which frankly, from someone who's met her in person, just doesn't hold true in small groups. And everybody says, you hear this time and time again, the camera does not love her. That's a bad thing in a television age.
Yeah.
That's a nice way of saying it. I have never heard it said that way. I may have to use that line.
It's
The
also a
camera doesn't
function
like her.
of our times
Yeah, it
that,
really is. It really
that
is.
we don't have many 65-year-old women who we watch on television every day. B. Arthur's not on every day. Oprah's not on every day anymore. Name a 65-year-old woman that you watch every day, that we turn on. So when Trump is so insidious, he's so ugly, he's so bad for our country, that all these health issues you raise appeals to all those misogynistic prejudices that this country treats older women with.
I want to shift to the regret line that we heard from Trump last night, because honestly, before yesterday, if you asked Trump if he had any regrets at all in his life, he would say absolutely not. And I think he has actually answered that way in interviews before. Does this run against the character or the caricature that he's presented to the American people, or do you think it's an effective way of humanizing him if he can sell it?
It's a very, very effective way of humanizing him. And it's the first sign of Kellyanne Conway. She's very good at understanding the pulse of the American people.
Incredibly smart,
Incredibly
disciplined.
smart, yes. And she knew, there's no other way to say this, that Mr. Trump was making such a fool of himself, there was no way he could have been elected continuing, and who knows what he's going to say tomorrow.
I'd be very surprised if that wasn't Kellyanne
Yeah,
Conway
it was
saying,
definitely her.
pressing the reset button, I need a hard
Literally
restart.
reset.
And the one way to grab headlines today is Donald Trump doing something he never did.
But he's so full of bravado and machismo,
No, you were right.
or,
You were
or
right.
however any other word ending in O you want to use there. Will it play well with voters that this guy who has been this brash bull in a china shop guy all of a sudden is now like, oh, I've got regrets?
So I'll return the favor. Dominic is 100% right. It's a very good way. It's a cynical but ugly way of pressing reset and telling voters, really, I'm not so bad. And worse than that, because he came out so ugly, so strong, he desensitized people. People, no matter what he says now moving forward, it's never going to be as bad as everybody's watched time and time again. How much uglier could he get? So now he comes in and look, I'm a softer, gentler Donald Trump. So now you're both desensitized to all the things he's said for several months, and he's going to reinvent himself in the process. Dominic's 100% right.
Last question before we go to the break. We're about a month away from the first debate. On the eve of the debate, will we look back on this week as having been a positive turning point for the Trump campaign, or just the latest hurdle that he's sort of overcome, Scott?
Donald Trump's campaign is based on winning every news cycle and being ahead of Hillary Clinton in that news cycle on the headlines. He's doing that every news cycle. So don't think because us Northeasterners think he's not doing so well that he doesn't think he's doing so well.
And in the long run, this will have been a good week for Donald Trump?
Yes. Hopefully, I don't live to eat these words come Tuesday night when he does something else ridiculous. But yes, if he listens to Kellyanne Conway, this would have been the turning point. What she is banking on, what he is banking on, they know that the American people are a forgiving people. And he has made a complete out of himself. And so now he's trying to turn that around.
And that's what she did. She said, give him redemption.
Right.
Everybody
and she's given him
deserves
redemption. Right.
Americans love.
Up until this point of the campaign, at least when it comes to the ad wars, this has been a one-sided contest. But now Donald Trump is out with his first commercials of the general election campaign. We're going to look at his ad plus Hillary Clinton's latest ad and debate who's winning the war on the airwaves.